The alarm systems screamed across the bridge of the Zytharian command ship. Commander Vexthar stood up from his seat, his 4 eyes narrowing as he looked at the display screen. Something had entered their space without permission. Something small, moving fast through the outer rim of the Proxima Veil system. "Report," Vexthar said, his voice calm despite the noise. "Unknown vessel, Commander," his scanner officer replied. "It appeared at the edge of our territory 15 minutes ago. The ship is small, possibly a fighter class or reconnaissance craft." Vexthar walked closer to the main screen. He had commanded fleets for 40 years. He had fought in more battles than most Zytharians could count. This small ship did not worry him. What worried him was that it came from a direction where no known civilization existed. "Send a warning message," he ordered. "Tell them to identify themselves and surrender. If they refuse, we will destroy them." His communications officer worked quickly, sending out the demand in several known languages. They waited. The small ship continued moving forward, not slowing down, not responding. "No answer, Commander." Vexthar clicked his mandibles together, a sign of frustration. "Bring the fleet to battle positions. If this is a scout for an invasion force, we need to capture it and learn who sent it." Within minutes, 12 Zytharian warships moved into formation. Each ship carried enough firepower to level a small moon. Together, they formed a wall of metal and weapons that had crushed countless enemies before. The small ship finally responded. The message came through in a language the Zytharians had never heard before. Their computers worked to translate it, but the words came out strange and broken. "This is Captain Jake Morrison of the scout ship Horizon. We are on a peaceful mission. We did not know this space belonged to anyone. Please, allow us to leave peacefully." Vexthar studied the translation. The message seemed reasonable, but he had learned not to trust words from unknown species. Too many civilizations used peace as a cover for attack. "Demand their surrender again," he said. "Tell them we will escort them to Proxima Veil for questioning. If they refuse or try to run, open fire." The message went out. This time, the human ship did respond, but not with words. It changed direction suddenly, moving away from the Zytharian fleet at a speed that made Vexthar's eyes widen. "That ship is too fast," his navigation officer said, surprise clear in his voice. "No scout ship should move like that." "It is running," Vexthar said. "They have something to hide. All ships, pursue and disable. Do not let it escape." The 12 warships surged forward, their engines burning bright, but the small human ship danced away from them like it was playing a game. It twisted and turned through space in ways that should not be possible. Every shot the Zytharians fired missed by meters. On board the Horizon, Captain Morrison gripped the arms of his chair as his pilot, Amy Chen, pushed their ship through maneuvers that made the structure groan. "They are definitely not friendly," Amy said through gritted teeth, pulling the ship into a roll that avoided 3 missiles at once. "Chris, how are our shields?" Morrison asked, looking at his engineer. Chris Parker checked his screens, his hands moving fast across the controls. "Holding at 80%. These aliens are using energy weapons mostly. Our shields can handle it, but I do not know for how long." Morrison made a decision he hoped he would not regret. "Amy, find us some cover. Lisa, send out a distress signal. Let Earth know we have made contact, and it is not going well. Kate, Danny, secure everything in medical. This is going to get rough." The Horizon dove toward a nearby asteroid field. The Zytharian ships followed, still firing. Several shots finally connected, and the small human ship shook from the impacts. "Shields down to 60%, Chris called out. "Captain, we need to return fire, or they will tear us apart." Morrison hated the idea. This was supposed to be a peaceful exploration mission. They were scientists and explorers, not soldiers. But he could not let his crew die because he was afraid to defend them. "Weapons free," he said quietly. "Target their engines only. Try not to kill anyone." Chris redirected power from their science equipment to their defensive guns. The Horizon was not built for combat, but every human ship carried weapons. Space was dangerous, and even peaceful missions needed protection from pirates and debris. The human ship spun around, and for the first time, it fired back. Two small railguns, designed to destroy asteroids and space debris, released their payload at incredible speed. Vexthar watched in horror as his lead ship exploded. The human weapons tore through the Zytharian shields like they did not exist. Metal and fire filled the space where a proud warship had been just seconds before. "What was that?" his tactical officer screamed. "Our shields should have stopped those weapons easily." "All ships, evasive action," Vexthar ordered, but it was too late. The human ship fired again, and another Zytharian cruiser broke apart. Its crew lost to the cold of space. The small human vessel moved between the Zytharian ships with impossible grace. It was like watching a dancer move through a crowd of frozen statues. Every time it fired, another warship died or fell away, crippled and burning. "This is not a scout ship," Vexthar's second officer said, his voice shaking. "This must be their newest fighter craft." Nothing else explains this, but Vexthar was looking at his sensors, and what he saw made his blood run cold. The human ship was old. Its hull showed signs of repairs and wear. Its power signature was weak compared to what a dedicated warship should produce. This was exactly what it claimed to be: a scout ship, probably outdated even by human standards. If this was what their scouts could do, what could their real warships accomplish? "Retreat," Vexthar said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Sir?" his tactical officer asked, not sure he heard correctly. "I said retreat," Vexthar roared. "Get us out of here before they kill us all." The remaining Zytharian ships turned and fled, their mighty fleet broken by a single small craft they could not even hit properly. Behind them, the Horizon stopped firing and watched them go. On the human ship, the crew sat in stunned silence. Amy's hands were still shaking on the controls. Chris stared at his screens, not quite believing what their weapons had done. Lisa had tears running down her face, overwhelmed by the violence they had been forced to commit. Captain Morrison took a deep breath. "Is everyone okay?" They all nodded, though none of them felt okay. Kate and Danny checked each crew member for injuries, but found only bruises and shock. "We need to report this to Earth," Ryan Brooks said, his voice quiet. "We just fought aliens. Real aliens. And we won." "We did not win," Morrison said firmly. "We survived. There is a difference." He looked at the debris floating in space, the remains of ships and crews who would never go home. "Record everything. Every sensor reading, every communication, every shot we fired. Earth needs to know what happened here." Nicole Hayes was already working on the report, her fingers moving across her console. Morrison thought about it. They had come out here to find new worlds, to explore and learn. But they had just made first contact with an alien species, and it had ended in battle. Everything was different now. "We continue," he said finally, "but we stay alert. If these aliens come back with more ships, we run. We are not equipped for a real fight." What none of them realized was that the Zytharians were thinking the exact same thing, except in reverse. They were not coming back. They had seen enough. Vexthar's fleet limped back toward Proxima Vale, and with every passing minute, the commander felt the weight of what had happened. He had attacked a ship that wanted peace. He had lost 5 warships and hundreds of crew members. And worst of all, he had discovered that his mighty empire had just made an enemy they could not possibly defeat. The message he would send to High Command would change everything. The Zytharian Empire had just learned they were no longer the strongest force in their region of space. They had learned this lesson in the worst way possible, and the teacher had been a single human scout ship with a crew of 8. The journey back to Proxima Vale took 6 hours. For Vexthar, each minute felt like a lifetime. He sat in his command chair, watching the stars pass by, while his crew worked in silence around him. Nobody wanted to talk about what had happened. Nobody wanted to admit that they had been beaten so badly by such a small enemy. The wounded ships trailed behind the others, their engines damaged and sputtering. Medical teams on every vessel worked to save the injured. The death count kept rising with each passing hour. By the time they reached Proxima Vale, over 400 Zytharian soldiers had died, and twice that number were injured. Vexthar had to make the hardest call of his life. He opened a channel to High Command, knowing that his career was probably over. Maybe his life too, depending on how angry the Supreme Commander would be. "This is Commander Vexthar, reporting from Proxima Vale," he began, keeping his voice steady. "We engaged an unknown vessel in our territory. The encounter resulted in the loss of 5 warships and significant casualties. The enemy ship escaped." There was a long pause. Then, the voice of Supreme Commander Krathzel came through, cold and sharp. "You lost 5 warships to 1 vessel?" "Yes, Supreme Commander." "Explain." Vexthar told her everything. He described the human ship, the impossible speed, the weapons that cut through their shields. He sent her all the sensor data, every recording they had made. When he finished, silence filled the channel again. "Stand by," Krathzel said finally. "Do not engage any other unknown vessels. I am sending an analysis team to review your data." The channel closed. Vexthar knew what that meant. They thought he was lying or exaggerating. They thought he was making excuses for his failure. In 3 days, he would face a military tribunal and probably lose his command. Far away, in the depths of space, the Horizon continued its mission. The crew had voted to keep going rather than run home. They were scared, but they were also professionals. They had a job to do. Captain Morrison sat in his small quarters, recording his report for Earth. He chose his words carefully, trying to explain what had happened without making it sound like they had started a war. "The alien vessels attacked without clear provocation," he said into the recorder. "We attempted peaceful communication, but they responded with weapons fire. We were forced to defend ourselves. Our weapons proved extremely effective against their ships, which concerns me. If their military technology is this far behind ours, first contact could become very complicated." He paused, thinking about the ships they had destroyed, the lives they had ended. "I want to emphasize that we did not want this fight. We tried to leave peacefully, but once they opened fire, we had no choice. I hope Earth will send diplomatic experts to help resolve this situation before it gets worse." Morrison ended the recording and sent it through the long-range communication system. It would take weeks to reach Earth, and weeks more to get a response. Until then, he and his crew were on their own. Amy found him in the mess hall later that evening. She sat down across from him with a cup of coffee and a tired expression. "How are you holding up?" she asked. "I keep thinking about those ships we destroyed," Morrison admitted. "We killed hundreds of people today, Amy. Maybe thousands. They shot first," she reminded him gently. "I know, but that does not make it easier." They sat in silence for a while, just being near each other. Finally, Amy spoke again. "The crew is scared, Jake. They are wondering if more aliens will come, if we will have to fight again." "So am I," Morrison said honestly. "But we cannot run home every time something dangerous happens. That is not why we became explorers." "No," Amy agreed. "But maybe we should be more careful. Maybe we should turn on our long-range scanners and avoid any system that shows signs of habitation." Morrison nodded. "That was probably wise. I will talk to Ryan and Nicole about it. We can adjust our survey route to avoid populated areas." Meanwhile, back on the Zytharian homeworld, Sub-Commander Yargeth was reviewing the data from Proxima Vale. He was an analyst, not a warrior. His job was to study enemy capabilities and find weaknesses. But as he looked at the recordings and sensor readings from the battle, he found no weaknesses, only terror. The human ship was small, about the size of a Zytharian shuttle. Its energy signature suggested a crew of less than 10 individuals. The hull composition was advanced, but not extraordinary. What made it dangerous was everything else. The weapons were simple kinetic accelerators, firing solid projectiles at incredible speeds. But the Zytharians had faced kinetic weapons before. Their shields should have stopped them easily. Except these projectiles were moving faster than anything Yargith had ever seen. The math was simple and horrible. More speed meant more energy, and more energy meant nothing could stop them. Then there was the movement. The human ship had dodged and weaved through Zytharian fire like it knew where every shot would be before it was fired. Yargith studied the recordings again and again, looking for some trick or technology that explained it. Finally, he realized the truth. It was the pilot, a living being with reflexes and skill beyond anything the Zytharians possessed. But what truly frightened Yargith was something else, something he found buried in the communication logs. The humans had been talking to each other during the battle, and the Zytharian computers had recorded everything. When the translation was cleaned up and analyzed, one phrase appeared several times: training scenario beta. The human pilot had compared their desperate fight for survival to a training exercise, something they practiced for fun or education. The Zytharian fleet had thrown everything they had at this small ship, and to the humans, it felt like practice. Yargith composed his report with shaking hands. He sent it to Supreme Commander Krathzel with a priority flag. Within an hour, he was summoned to the War Council chambers. The council room was huge and filled with the most powerful military leaders in the Zytharian Empire. Yargith felt very small as he walked to the center and prepared to present his findings. Supreme Commander Krathzel watched him from her throne, her expression unreadable. "Sub-Commander Yargith," she said formally. "You have reviewed the data from Proxima Vale. What is your assessment?" Yargith activated the display screen. Images of the horizon appeared, along with graphs and calculations. "The vessel is definitely a scout ship," he began. "Its design, power output, and weapon systems all confirm this. It is built for exploration and light defense, not military combat." Murmurs spread through the council. Several commanders looked angry, thinking this was an insult to Vexthar. "If it is just a scout," one of them demanded, "how did it destroy 5 of our best warships? Because their scouts are better than our warships?" Yargith said bluntly. "The technological gap between our civilizations is significant. Their shields, weapons, and propulsion systems are all generations ahead of ours." "Impossible," another commander said. "We are the dominant force in this sector. We have conquered or absorbed every civilization we have encountered. We have never encountered anyone like the humans," Yargith replied. He brought up more data. "I have analyzed their communications. The crew members were frightened and uncertain during the battle. They did not want to fight. One of them compared our assault to a training exercise they had practiced before." The council chamber fell silent. "They were not even trying hard," Yargith continued. "They used minimal force to defend themselves. If they had wanted to, they could have destroyed the entire fleet. Commander Vexthar is lucky to be alive." Supreme Commander Krathzel stood up. Her presence commanded attention from everyone in the room. "What you are saying is that we attacked a scout ship, barely survived, and now we face an enemy with vastly superior technology." "Yes, Supreme Commander. And if this is what their scouts can do, their actual military must be even more powerful." "That is my assessment." "Yes." Krathzel looked around the room at her fellow commanders. Some looked scared. Others looked angry. A few looked thoughtful. "Then we have a choice to make. We can prepare for war against an enemy we cannot defeat. Or we can try something we have never done before." "What is that?" someone asked. We can ask for peace before the war even begins. The council erupted in argument. Some commanders called it cowardice. Others called it wisdom. Yargeth stood quietly in the center, waiting for the decision that would determine the fate of his entire civilization. On the horizon, Kate Sullivan was doing her final rounds of medical checks on the crew. Everyone was physically fine, but the mental strain was obvious. Danny helped her by talking to each person, offering comfort and support. "We are not soldiers," Danny said to Chris as he checked the engineer's blood pressure. "We signed up to explore new worlds and study stars, not to fight wars." "I know," Chris replied. "But maybe that is why we won. We did not want to fight, so we only did what we had to do. Those aliens came at us with everything, like they wanted to prove something. We just wanted to survive." Danny thought about that. Maybe Chris was right. Maybe the difference between a warrior and an explorer was that warriors looked for fights, while explorers tried to avoid them. And when avoiding was not possible, explorers fought smart instead of fighting proud. Captain Morrison was thinking similar thoughts as he looked at the star charts. They had traveled so far from Earth, seen so many wonders, and made so many discoveries. Now they had also made first contact with aliens, and it had gone wrong in every possible way. But it was not over yet. Out there, somewhere, the aliens were making decisions about what to do next. Morrison just hoped they would choose wisely, because if they came back with a real fleet, the horizon would have to run. And if they could not run fast enough, well, Morrison tried not to think about that. He looked at his crew. These 7 people who trusted him to lead them safely through the unknown. They deserved better than to die in a war that neither side wanted. He would do everything in his power to make sure that did not happen. Supreme Commander Krathzel made her decision after 3 days of arguments and debates. The War Council wanted action, but they could not agree on what kind. Half wanted to mobilize every ship in the Empire and hunt down the humans. The other half wanted to fortify their borders and prepare for an invasion. Krathzel chose neither option. "We will watch them," she announced to the council. "We will send surveillance drones to follow this human ship and learn everything we can. We will study their language, their behavior, their technology. Only when we understand what we face can we make an informed decision." Some commanders protested, but Krathzel silenced them with a look. "If we attack blindly again, we will lose more ships. If we hide behind our walls, we learn nothing. Information is our only advantage right now. I will not waste it by acting out of fear or pride." She assigned the surveillance mission to Yargeth. He was not a warrior, but he was the best analyst the Empire had. If anyone could learn the truth about humanity from watching one small ship, it was him. Yargeth assembled a team of 5 specialists: a linguist, a technology expert, a behavioral analyst, a sensor operator, and a pilot. They loaded into a small stealth ship designed for intelligence gathering and departed for the region where the horizon was last spotted. Finding the human ship was easier than expected. It was not hiding or running. It was doing exactly what it said it would do: exploring. The horizon moved slowly through an empty star system, scanning planets and taking samples from asteroids. "Deploy the drones," Yargeth ordered. "Keep them at maximum distance. I do not want the humans to detect us." 6 small drones separated from the stealth ship and spread out in a wide formation around the horizon. Each one was barely larger than a fist, with advanced sensors and recording equipment. They were designed to be invisible to most scanning systems. The Zytharians watched and recorded everything. They listened to human communications, trying to understand the strange language. They analyzed the ship's energy patterns, looking for weaknesses. They studied how the crew moved and worked, searching for clues about human psychology and culture. On the first day, they learned that the humans worked in shifts: 3 people awake at all times, 5 sleeping. They were disciplined but also friendly with each other, joking and talking during their duties. This confused the behavioral analyst. They are too casual, she said. Military crews maintain strict hierarchy and formality. These humans act more like— She searched for the right word. Like friends on a camping trip. Perhaps that is their culture, Yargeth suggested. Not everyone trains their soldiers the way we do. On the second day, the linguist made a breakthrough. The human language was complex but followed logical patterns. With enough samples, the computer could translate it with reasonable accuracy. The first clear message they decoded made everyone on the stealth ship go silent. A human named Lisa was talking to someone named Ryan. "I am so tired of eating recycled food," she complained. "When we get back to Station 7, I am going to eat fresh vegetables for a week straight." "Station 7?" Ryan replied with a laugh. "That place has terrible food. You should wait until we reach Earth. My mom makes this amazing pasta dish. Earth is 4 months away," Lisa groaned. "I will die of boredom before we get there." The Zytharians looked at each other with growing concern. Earth was 4 months away. That meant this ship had been traveling for months already. That meant their territory was much closer to human space than they thought. And Station 7 implied there were multiple human outposts scattered around this region. On the third day, the technology expert made his report. "Their reactor is old," he said, pointing at the energy readings. "I estimate it is at least 20 years, outdated by human standards. They are running on backup power for several non-essential systems. The ship itself shows signs of extensive repairs and modifications." "Are you certain it is outdated?" Yargeth asked. "The crew complained about it," the expert confirmed. One of them, the engineer named Chris, said the reactor barely passed safety inspection. He said, and I quote, "They got stuck with old equipment because all the new ships went to the military." Yargeth felt cold. If this was old equipment, what did new equipment look like? On the fourth day, the pilot noticed something interesting. "Watch how their pilot moves the ship," he said, replaying a recording. "See those maneuvers? Those are training exercises, advanced pilot training, the kind we teach to our elite fighter crews, except she does them casually, while having a conversation about food." Amy Chen was indeed piloting the Horizon through a complex series of turns and rolls, while talking to Kate about recipes. To her, it was just normal flying. To the Zytharians watching, it was proof that even basic human pilots had skills that took Zytharians years to develop. On the fifth day, they intercepted a personal log entry from Captain Morrison. The translation was rough but clear enough. "Day 147 of our mission. We have surveyed 6 systems and found 2 planets that might be suitable for colonization after terraforming. The incident with the hostile aliens has delayed our schedule by a week, but we are back on track. I have sent my report to Earth and requested diplomatic support. Hopefully, we can resolve this peacefully and avoid any more violence. The crew is doing well, though everyone is more nervous now. We are running our weapons drills more frequently, just in case." The behavioral analyst looked up sharply. "Day 147? They have been out here for almost 5 months, alone, in a single small ship, with only 8 people. What is wrong with that?" Yargeth asked. "Our scouts travel in groups of at least 3 ships," she explained. "They stay within communication range of support fleets. They never go more than 2 weeks from a resupply station. These humans have been alone for 5 months, and they plan to stay out for several more. They are either incredibly brave or incredibly foolish. Or they are so confident in their abilities that they do not need support," the technology expert added quietly. On the 6th day, the Horizon deployed several satellites around a promising planet. The Zytharians watched the process carefully, noting how efficiently the humans worked. Each satellite was small but sophisticated, capable of monitoring weather, geology, and potential life signs. "They are marking territory," the behavioral analyst said. "These satellites will tell other humans that this planet has been claimed for study." "Do they have enough satellites to mark many planets?" Yargeth asked. The technology expert checked the ship's cargo readings. They have 40 more satellites in storage. They plan to survey and mark at least 40 systems on this journey. 40 systems. The Zytharian Empire controlled only 60 systems in total, accumulated over 3 centuries of conquest. These 8 humans in their old scout ship were casually marking territory like they had unlimited space to expand into. On the 7th day, something happened that changed everything. The Zytharians intercepted a conversation between Amy and Danny that made their blood run cold. "I miss the academy sometimes," Amy said, as she guided the ship through an asteroid field. "Remember how exciting it was during our 2nd year? Flying the old trainers? Learning basic combat maneuvers? This ship handles just like those trainers," Danny replied. "Makes sense, since the Horizon is the same model. They built thousands of these back in the 190 seconds for training purposes. When the program ended, they converted them for exploration work." "Yeah," Amy agreed. "We are flying a 20-year-old training vessel that barely works, eating bad food, months from home, and we just fought off aliens with better ships than us. Sometimes I wonder why we do this job." "Because someone has to," Danny said. "And because it beats sitting in an office on Earth." They laughed and continued their work, unaware that 6 Zytharian drones were recording every word. On the stealth ship, nobody was laughing. The pilot looked sick. The technology expert was shaking his head in disbelief. The behavioral analyst had gone pale. "They converted training ships into scouts," the linguist said slowly. "That means their actual scout ships, the ones built for real reconnaissance work, must be much more advanced. And their military ships," the technology expert added. "The ones that got all the new equipment, while these explorers got the old trainers. Those ships must be." He could not finish the sentence. He did not need to. Everyone understood. Yargeth compiled all the data they had gathered over 6 days. He organized it into a comprehensive report, adding his own analysis and conclusions. Then, he opened a secure channel to Supreme Commander Krathzel. "Supreme Commander, I have completed the surveillance mission. You need to see this data immediately. Summarize your findings," Krathzel ordered. Yargeth took a deep breath. "The human vessel we attacked is a converted training ship, over 20 years old by their standards. The crew considers it outdated and poorly equipped. They are operating months away from any support, conducting a routine exploration mission. They view their encounter with us as an unfortunate incident, not an act of war. And most concerning, they have infrastructure in this region. Stations, supply routes, and dozens of other ships conducting similar missions." There was a long silence. Then Krathzel spoke, her voice carefully controlled. "You are telling me we attacked an old training vessel being used for basic exploration, and it destroyed 5 of our warships?" "Yes, Supreme Commander. And their actual military, with current technology and trained warriors, is somewhere out there." "Yes, Supreme Commander. How many ships do they have?" "Unknown. But based on the crew's conversations, thousands at minimum. They mentioned multiple fleets, defensive forces, exploration corps, and commercial vessels. Their civilization is vast, Supreme Commander. Much larger than ours." Krathzel was quiet for so long that Yargeth worried the connection had been lost. Finally, she spoke again. "Return to base. Bring all your data. The War Council needs to see this." "What will you do, Supreme Commander?" "What I should have done from the beginning," Krathzel replied. "I am going to make contact with the humans before one of my commanders does something stupid and gets us all killed." The channel closed. Yargeth looked at his team. They all wore the same expression of fear and relief. Fear of what humanity could do to them. Relief that someone in command was finally being sensible about it. "Set course for home," Yargeth ordered. "Maximum speed. The Supreme Commander is going to need this data as soon as possible. As the stealth ship turned away, the drones continued monitoring the horizon for a few more hours, gathering every last bit of information they could. Then, one by one, they powered down and drifted away, their mission complete. On the horizon, Ryan Brooks was running a sensor sweep when he noticed something odd. "Captain, I am picking up some strange readings. Very faint, like echoes of something that was here, but is gone now." Morrison came to look at the display. "What do you think it was?" Ryan shrugged. "Could be natural. Could be debris. Or..." He hesitated. Ryan Strand. Ryan Strand. Ryan Strand. Ryan Strand. "Or someone was watching us," Morrison finished. They looked at each other. Neither liked that possibility, but both knew it was likely. If the aliens were smart, they would want to learn more about humanity before making their next move. The question was, what would they do with that information? "Keep scanning," Morrison ordered, "and everyone stay alert. We might have company again soon." He was right. But what was coming was not another attack. It was something neither side had expected or prepared for. An actual attempt at communication. The War Council meeting lasted 12 hours. Supreme Commander Krathzel presented all of Yargeth's findings, every recording, every analysis, every terrifying conclusion. Some commanders still argued for military action. Others wanted to abandon their outer territories and retreat deeper into their own space. But slowly, grudgingly, most of them came to accept the truth. The Zytharian Empire could not win a war against humanity. Not now. Probably not ever. "We have 3 options," Krathzel said when the arguing finally stopped. "We can fight and die. We can run and hide. Or we can talk." "Talk to them?" Commander Vexthar said from the back of the room. He had been allowed to attend, though he no longer held his command. "What makes you think they will listen?" "We attacked them without provocation." "Exactly," Krathzel replied. "We wronged them first. That gives us a position to negotiate from. We can apologize, offer compensation, and request peace. If they are as reasonable as Yargeth believes, they might accept." "And if they are not reasonable?" another commander asked. "If they use our apology as a sign of weakness and attack, then we die knowing we tried," Krathzel said simply. "But I do not think that will happen. Everything we learned about them suggests they are explorers, not conquerors. They did not pursue our fleet. They did not invade our territory. They went back to their mission of studying planets. That tells me they do not want war any more than we do." The council voted. It was close, but Krathzel's position won. The Zytharian Empire would attempt first contact. This time, peacefully. Krathzel chose Silray for the mission. She was young, only 30 years old. But she had studied alien cultures for most of her life. She was also brave. Which was important. Someone had to fly toward the humans who had destroyed 5 warships and ask them nicely to please not kill everyone. "You will take a diplomatic shuttle," Krathzel explained to Silray in a private meeting. "No weapons, no shields, just communication equipment. You will approach the human ship slowly, broadcasting peaceful intentions in their language." "Do we have enough of their language to communicate effectively?" Silray asked. "Yargeth's team has prepared a basic translation matrix. It is not perfect, but it should be good enough to express our desire for peace. You will also have a live link to our best linguists. They will help you during the conversation." Silray nodded, though her hands were shaking slightly. "What if they shoot me before I can talk?" "Sil? 1. They will not," Krathzel said, with more confidence than she felt. "They had many chances to kill our surveillance drones, but they did not. They even looked for them without attacking. That tells me they are curious and cautious, not aggressive. You will be safe. I hope you are right, Supreme Commander." 2 days later, Silray's shuttle approached the horizon. She had been broadcasting her message for the past hour, repeating it every few minutes in what she hoped was understandable English. Human vessel, this is a diplomatic mission from the Zytharian Empire. We come in peace. We wish to talk about the incident at Proxima Vale. We mean you no harm. Please respond. On the horizon, Lisa Rodriguez was the first to hear the message. She jumped in her seat, then quickly called for the captain. Sir, you need to hear this. We are being hailed by the aliens. They are speaking English. Sort of. Morrison rushed to the bridge, Amy and Chris right behind him. Lisa played the message. The accent was strange and some words were mispronounced, but the meaning was clear. They want to talk, Amy said, surprised. After they attacked us? Now they want to talk? Maybe they figured out we are stronger than they thought, Chris suggested. Maybe they are scared. Morrison considered his options. Every instinct told him to be suspicious. But they were out here to make contact with new civilizations. And you could not do that by running away every time things got complicated. Open a channel, he ordered. Lisa worked her controls, and soon Morrison was speaking to an alien for the first time in human history. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the scout ship Horizon. We receive your message. What do you want to talk about? There was a delay as the translation systems on both sides processed the words. Then Silray's voice came through, nervous but clear. Captain Morrison, thank you for responding. My name is Silray. I represent the Zytharian Empire. We wish to apologize for the attack at Proxima Vale. Our commander made a terrible mistake. We thought your vessel was a military threat. We know now that you are explorers on a peaceful mission. We are very sorry for the loss of life and the danger we put you in. Morrison exchanged glances with his crew. An apology was the last thing he expected. You attacked us because you thought we were a threat? Yes, Captain. We did not recognize your ship or your species. When you entered our territory without permission, we assumed hostile intent. This was wrong. We should have tried harder to communicate before using weapons. Well, Morrison said slowly, we did not know this was your territory. Our maps showed this region as unexplored space. If we had known, we would have asked permission to pass through. Another delay. Then Silray spoke again, her relief obvious even through the translation. So this was a misunderstanding on both sides. Neither of us wanted conflict. So this was reasoned. Silray spoke again. Neither of us wanted conflict. That is correct. We are scientists and explorers. We have no interest in war or conquest. That is very good to hear, Captain. My government would like to arrange a formal meeting. We wish to establish peaceful relations between our two civilizations. Would you be willing to participate in such a meeting? Morrison hesitated. This was way above his pay grade. He was a scout captain, not a diplomat. But he also knew that Earth was months away, and any message would take even longer to get a response. If he refused, the aliens might think humans were not interested in peace. I am willing to meet, he said carefully. But I am not authorized to make any formal agreements on behalf of humanity. I can only listen to your proposals and relay them to my government. That is acceptable, Captain. Would it be possible for me to come aboard your ship? I am alone and unarmed. This would allow us to talk more easily. Morrison looked at his crew again. Amy shook her head slightly, worried about the risk. Chris shrugged, leaving the decision to him. Lisa looked excited, eager to meet an actual alien. You can come aboard, Morrison decided. But I must warn you. If this is a trick, if there are other ships hiding nearby, we will defend ourselves. I understand, Captain. There are no other ships. I am truly alone. I will approach your docking port slowly. Please do not shoot me. We will not shoot you if you do not give us a reason to. The next hour was tense. The crew watched as the small alien shuttle moved closer, its movements slow and non-threatening. When it finally docked, Morrison and Amy stood by the airlock with weapons ready, just in case. The airlock opened. Silray stepped through, and both humans stared. She was tall, maybe 2 meters, with 4 arms and gray skin covered in fine scales. Her 4 eyes blinked independently, and her mouth had small mandibles on each side. She wore simple robes and carried nothing in her hands. "Captain Morrison?" she asked, her voice coming from a small device on her chest. "Welcome aboard," Morrison said, lowering his weapon. "This is Amy Chen, my pilot. The rest of the crew is waiting in the common area. Would you like to meet them?" Silray nodded, a gesture she had learned from watching the surveillance footage. "Yes, please. I am very curious about humans." They led her through the ship. Silray looked at everything with wide eyes, taking in the technology and design. When they reached the common area, the rest of the crew stood up nervously. "Everyone." "This is Silray," Morrison announced. "She represents the aliens who attacked us. She is here to talk about peace." The introductions were awkward but friendly. Kate and Danny showed Silray how to sit in a human chair, which was difficult with 4 arms. Ryan and Nicole asked her questions about Zytharian science and culture. Chris offered her something to drink, then had to explain what coffee was. After the initial nervousness faded, they got down to business. Morrison and Silray sat across from each other while the others listened. "Tell me about your government," Morrison requested. "What is the Zytharian Empire?" Silray explained as best she could. She described their territory, 60 star systems spread across 200 light-years. She talked about their history of expansion and conquest, how they had absorbed smaller civilizations over 3 centuries. She admitted that they were not a peaceful people by nature. "But we are learning," she said quietly. "Your ship taught us an important lesson. We are not as strong as we thought. There are others in the galaxy who are more advanced, more capable. If we continue acting like conquerors, eventually, we will meet someone we cannot defeat." Morrison felt uncomfortable with that assessment. "We are not conquerors either. We do not want to defeat anyone. We just want to explore and learn." "I know," Silray said. "We watched you for 6 days. We saw how you work, how you talk to each other. You are not warriors. That is why my government believes we can have peace with your people." "What exactly does your government want?" Silray laid out the proposal. "A formal treaty of non-aggression, open communication channels between both civilizations, possibly trade agreements in the future. Once trust was established, the Zytharians would recognize human territorial claims in this region, and humans would respect Zytharian borders." "It sounds reasonable," Morrison admitted. "But I need to send this to Earth for approval. My government will want to negotiate the details." "Of course, we understand. How long will that take?" 4 months for the message to reach Earth, plus however long they need to make a decision. Plus 4 months for the response to reach me. Probably a year, at minimum. Silray's eyes widened. "A year? Your communication is that slow? We do not have faster-than-light communication," Morrison explained. "Our messages travel at light speed. It takes a long time to coordinate across interstellar distances." Quote, this seemed to shock Silray more than anything else. "But how do you coordinate your fleets? How do you maintain your empire?" "We do not have an empire. Each human colony is largely independent. We have a central government on Earth, but it mostly handles diplomacy and major decisions. Day-to-day operations are local." Silray struggled to understand this. The Zytharian Empire was highly centralized, with every decision flowing from the Supreme Commander. The idea of independent colonies working together without constant oversight seemed impossible. But it also explained a lot. If humans could operate effectively without fast communication, they must be very good at local decision-making and independent action. That made them even more formidable than she thought. They talked for hours, sharing information and building understanding. By the end, both Morrison and Silray felt cautiously optimistic. This could work. Peace was possible. "I will return to my people and report this conversation," Silray said as she prepared to leave. "They will be relieved. War with humanity would have destroyed us. I hope we can avoid that, Morrison replied honestly. There is enough space in the galaxy for both our civilizations. Yes, Silrai agreed. There is. As she left the ship and her shuttle pulled away, Morrison felt the weight of what had just happened. He had conducted first contact negotiations without any training or support. He had made promises on behalf of all humanity. He hoped he had done the right thing. Do you think they are sincere? Amy asked after Silray was gone. I think they are terrified, Morrison replied. And sometimes fear makes people more honest than friendship. The message from Captain Morrison took 4 months to reach Earth, traveling at the speed of light across the vast emptiness between stars. When it finally arrived at the Colonial Administration Building in Geneva, it created immediate chaos. Humanity had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now, they knew they were not. And their first contact had started with violence, even if it was not their fault. The Colonial Administration forwarded the message to the United Earth Council, which forwarded it to the Department of Interstellar Affairs, which forwarded it to the military, which forwarded it back to everyone else. Within a week, every major government and organization on Earth knew about the Zytharians. Some people were excited. Others were scared. Most were confused about what to do next. The council appointed Ambassador Brandon Cole to handle the situation. He was 60 years old, with 30 years of experience in difficult negotiations. He had helped resolve 3 colonial disputes and 2 corporate wars. Now, he faced his biggest challenge: establishing relations with an alien species that had attacked humans, but was now asking for peace. Cole assembled a team of experts: linguists, scientists, military advisors, and cultural specialists. They studied everything Morrison had sent, analyzing every detail about the Zytharians. Then Cole made his recommendation to the council. We should accept their offer of peace, he said in his report. They attacked out of fear and ignorance, not malice. They have apologized and are offering fair terms. More importantly, they are clearly afraid of us, which gives us a strong negotiating position. If we reject them, they might become desperate and dangerous. If we accept, we gain our first alien ally. One quote. The council debated for 3 weeks. Some members argued that any species aggressive enough to attack first contact should be considered hostile. Others pointed out that humanity had done worse things in their own history. Eventually, they voted to authorize Cole to negotiate a treaty. But there was a problem. Morrison was 4 months away, and any message to him would take another 4 months. That meant a full year round trip for any communication. The council decided to send an actual diplomatic mission instead. They would travel to the Horizon's last known position and take over negotiations from Morrison. Admiral Patricia Morgan was assigned to lead the military escort. She was 55 years old and had commanded defensive fleets for 20 years. She understood the delicate balance between showing strength and avoiding provocation. We will take 3 ships, Morgan decided in the planning meeting. My flagship, the Venture, plus 2 escort cruisers. That is enough to defend ourselves, but not so much that it looks like an invasion fleet. Are 3 ships enough? One of her officers asked. Captain Morrison destroyed 5 enemy warships with a scout vessel. What if the Zytharians send more? 1. Then we run, Morgan said bluntly. Our mission is diplomacy, not war. We are there to talk, not fight. If fighting becomes necessary, it means we failed. The diplomatic fleet departed Earth 3 months after receiving Morrison's message. They carried the Council's official response, gifts of human culture and technology, and authorization to negotiate a formal treaty. They also carried something else, copies of human history, showing both the best and worst of what humanity had achieved. Cole believed that honesty was important. If the Zytharians were going to be allies, they needed to know the truth about humanity, including the ugly parts. Meanwhile, on the Zytharian homeworld, Supreme Commander Krathsel was dealing with her own political problems. Word of the defeat at Proxima Vale had spread throughout the Empire. Some citizens were angry that their military had been beaten. Others were scared of the humans. A few extremist groups were calling for Krathzel's removal, claiming she was too soft. But Krathzel had one advantage. She was honest about the situation. She released all the surveillance data to the public, showing exactly what the horizon was and what it had done. She let the people see the truth. That 5 warships had attacked an old exploration vessel and been destroyed for their trouble. "This is not a defeat," she said in a public broadcast. "This is a lesson. We learned that we are not the most powerful civilization in the galaxy. We learned this without losing our entire empire. That makes us lucky, not weak. The question now is, what will we do with this knowledge? Will we hide in fear? Or will we learn from our mistakes and build something better?" Her speech was effective. Public opinion slowly shifted. People began to see the peace initiative as pragmatic rather than cowardly. The extremists lost support, and Krathzel's position became more secure. 4 months after Silray's meeting with Morrison, the human diplomatic fleet arrived at the coordinates Morrison had provided. But the horizon was not there. The scout ship had continued its mission, surveying systems and marking planets for future colonization. It took another week to locate them. When they did, Morrison nearly had a heart attack. His tiny scout ship suddenly found itself surrounded by 3 massive human warships, each one 50 times the size of the horizon. "This is Admiral Patricia Morgan of the Earth Fleet," a voice announced over the communication channel. "Captain Morrison, we are here to relieve you of diplomatic duties. You and your crew have done excellent work, but it is time for the professionals to take over." Morrison had never been so relieved in his life. He had been carrying the weight of first contact for months, making decisions that could affect all of humanity. Now, someone else could handle it. The diplomatic team transferred to Morrison's ship for a briefing. Ambassador Cole listened carefully as Morrison described his encounters with Vexthar and Silray. He reviewed all the sensor data from both battles and the peaceful meeting. "You did well," Cole told him. "Better than most trained diplomats would have done. You stayed calm, defended your crew, and gave peace a chance. That is exactly what we needed." "I was terrified the whole time," Morrison admitted. "Good. Fear makes you careful. Careful keeps you alive." Cole and Morgan then discussed strategy. They decided to contact the Zytharians and propose a formal summit. The meeting would take place on neutral ground, a small, uninhabited planet halfway between human and Zytharian territory. The Zytharians agreed immediately. Krathzel herself would attend, bringing a full delegation of advisors and experts. The fact that she was coming in person showed how seriously the Zytharians took these negotiations. The summit began 2 weeks later. Temporary buildings had been erected on the planet's surface, along with communication equipment and life support systems for both species. Human and Zytharian ships maintained position in orbit, ready to evacuate their delegations if anything went wrong. The first meeting was formal and cautious. Cole and Krathzel sat across from each other, their teams flanking them. Translation devices had been improved significantly, allowing for clearer communication. "On behalf of the United Earth Council," Cole began, "I thank you for agreeing to this meeting. We come in peace, seeking to establish friendly relations between our civilizations." "On behalf of the Zytharian Empire," Krathzel replied, "I apologize for the attack on your vessel. It was a mistake born of fear and ignorance. We hope to move past it and build mutual understanding." They spent the first day establishing basic facts: population sizes, territorial claims, technological capabilities. The Zytharians were shocked to learn that humanity controlled over 200 star systems and had a population exceeding 50 billion. By their standards, that made Earth a superpower. On the second day, they discussed the incident at Proxima Vale in detail. Cole listened to Krathzel's explanation of why her commander had attacked. Then he surprised everyone by saying, "I understand why it happened. If an unknown ship entered our space without permission, we might react the same way. War almost started because neither side understood the other. That is why we need this treaty, to prevent future misunderstandings. This honesty broke down barriers. Krathzel visibly relaxed, realizing that humans were not looking for revenge or advantage. They genuinely wanted peace. On the third day, Morgan and the Zytharian military advisors had their own meeting. This was the most delicate part of the negotiations. The Zytharians needed to understand human military capabilities, but humans did not want to reveal everything. Morgan chose to be direct. Captain Morrison's ship was a converted training vessel, 20 years old and poorly maintained. It was never designed for combat. Our actual military vessels are far more capable. I tell you this not to threaten, but so you understand reality. If we wanted to conquer you, we could. But we do not want that. Conquest is expensive and cruel, and it makes enemies. We prefer friends. The Zytharian officers appreciated her honesty. One of them, a grizzled veteran, spoke up. We analyzed the battle data extensively. We know your technology is superior to ours in several key areas. We also know our technology has advantages in other areas, like faster-than-light communication and medical treatments. Perhaps instead of fighting over who is stronger, we could share knowledge and both become stronger. This comment led to the most productive part of the summit. Both sides began discussing technology exchange. The Zytharians wanted human propulsion systems, shield technology, and materials science. Humans wanted Zytharian communication systems, medical knowledge, and their advanced understanding of exotic matter. By the fifth day, the framework of a treaty was emerging. Non-aggression pacts, defined borders, trade agreements, and technology-sharing protocols. Both sides agreed to exchange ambassadors and establish permanent communication channels. But there was one more issue to address. Cole brought it up carefully. Supreme Commander, I need to ask about your empire's history. Our research shows that you expanded through conquest, absorbing smaller civilizations. What happened to those civilizations? Are they still part of your empire? Krathzel had expected this question. Some were integrated peacefully and now govern themselves as part of our federation. Others resisted and were subjugated. I will not lie to you, Ambassador. We have done terrible things in our history. We believed we had the right to take what we wanted because we were strong enough to take it. And now? Now we know we are not as strong as we thought. But more than that, we are learning that strength is not the only thing that matters. You could conquer us, but you choose not to. That is a kind of strength we never understood before. Cole nodded slowly. Humanity has also done terrible things in our history. We fought wars, committed genocides, destroyed our own planet's environment. We are not perfect, but we learned that cooperation works better than domination. Perhaps you can learn the same lesson without making all the same mistakes we did. On the seventh day, both delegations signed the Treaty of First Contact. It established formal relations between the Zytharian Empire and the United Earth Council. It defined borders, created trade agreements, and set up protocols for future cooperation. Most importantly, it included provisions for peaceful resolution of disputes. The ceremony was broadcast to both civilizations. Billions of humans and Zytharians watched as their leaders shook hands, or in Krathzel's case, touched forearms with Cole in the traditional Zytharian greeting of trust. After the signing, there was a celebration. Human and Zytharian delegates mingled, sharing food and stories. The differences between them were obvious, but so were the similarities. Both species loved their families. Both valued courage and honor. Both wanted a future free from fear and war. Captain Morrison attended the celebration with his crew. They were the reason any of this was possible. If they had reacted differently at Proxima Vale, if they had been cruel or aggressive after winning the battle, peace might never have been achieved. Ambassador Cole found Morrison during the party. Captain, I have a message for you from the Council. They are awarding you and your crew the Star of Terra, our highest civilian honor. You prevented a war, and established first contact with an alien species. That is more than most people accomplish in 10 lifetimes. Morrison felt embarrassed. I was just doing my job, sir. Any scout captain would have done the same. No. Many would have run. Some would have kept fighting. You chose the hardest path, defending yourself without seeking revenge, and giving peace a chance, even when you had every right to be angry. That is why you deserve recognition. Across the room, Vex Thar stood alone, watching the celebration. He had been invited as a gesture of reconciliation. After all, he was the commander who started the conflict. But he was also the one who made the hard choice to retreat instead of fighting to the death. Krathzel found him there. You look troubled, old friend. I am watching all this, and wondering what would have happened if I had been a bit smarter, Vexthar said. If I had tried harder to communicate before shooting. If I had been less arrogant about our superiority. You made a mistake, Krathzel said. But you also made the right choice when it mattered. You retreated, when you could have fought on and gotten everyone killed. That took wisdom. It took fear, Vexthar corrected. I was terrified. Sometimes fear and wisdom are the same thing. The celebration continued late into the evening. By the time it ended, both sides felt something new. Hope. Hope that different species could coexist. Hope that violence was not inevitable. Hope that the galaxy was big enough for everyone. 3 months later, the first permanent ambassadors took up their positions. Brandon Cole moved to the Zytharian homeworld, while a Zytharian diplomat, named Karthen, moved to Earth. They began the slow work of building real understanding between their peoples. Trade ships started making regular runs between human and Zytharian space. Technology exchange programs brought scientists from both civilizations together. Cultural festivals introduced humans to Zytharian art and music, and vice versa. Captain Morrison and his crew returned to Earth as heroes. They received their medals in a ceremony attended by thousands. But Morrison gave credit where it was due. We were scared, he said in his speech. We fought because we had to, but we never stopped trying to find a peaceful solution. And when the chance came, we took it. That is what exploration is really about. Not just finding new worlds, but finding new friends. Years later, Vexthar retired from military service and became an instructor. His first lesson to every new class of officers was always the same story. The story of how he attacked what he thought was a warship and learned it was only a scout. The story of how 5 mighty warships were destroyed by 8 frightened explorers. The story of how pride nearly destroyed an entire civilization. Remember this lesson, he would tell his students. Never assume you are facing the enemy's best. Never assume you are stronger than you are. And most importantly, never assume that violence is your only option. We survived our encounter with humanity because we learned when to stop fighting and start talking. That wisdom saved us all. In human schools, children learned about the scout ship crisis. They learned how a small crew prevented a war and made first contact with an alien species. They learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose peace over victory. And in both civilizations, young people grew up in a new era. An era where humans and Zytharians worked together, learned from each other, and built a future that neither could have achieved alone. The war that almost happened became the peace that defined a generation. All because 8 explorers in an old training ship chose to defend themselves wisely and give peace a chance, even when they had every reason to seek revenge. And because one alien commander learned humility in the hardest way possible, and chose to teach that lesson rather than hide from it. The galaxy was vast and full of mysteries. But now, at least in one small corner of it, 2 species faced those mysteries together, instead of fighting over them. And that made all the difference.